Fallout New Vegas is often considered the best game in the Fallout franchise and one of the strongest RPGs ever made. And despite it being over 15 years old, it still manages to outclass a lot of modern open world games in the areas that matter the most. And sure, the game has some issues like basically being unplayable without a bunch of mods and feeling a bit outdated at times. Oh, please stop crashing. But those are just small prices to pay in order to experience this masterpiece, and I'm here to talk about it. New Vegas opens up with a cutscene that does a great job of establishing the world and its stakes. We get a look at a post-apocalyptic New Vegas lit up in the middle of the Mojave Desert, hear about the aftermath of the nuclear war, and learn that there's a battle for control over the Mojave and the New Vegas Strip. The three major powers involved in this struggle are the NCR, Caesar's Legion, and Mr. House, who is the man currently pulling the strings in New Vegas. So right away, the cutscene gives the player a clear breakdown of the political tension in this wasteland. But more importantly, it introduces the player character, who is a courier hired by the Mojave Express to deliver a mysterious package to New Vegas. But this job quickly goes sideways, and you end up getting tied up, robbed of your package, and shot in the head by a man in a checkered suit. But surprise, you are not dead. You were just taking a nap. A few days later, you wake up in a small town called Good Springs, patched up by the town doctor, Doc Mitchell. And this is where New Vegas quietly hands you full control of your experience. You create your character, pick your special attributes, and answer some questions to then spend some skill points and choose some perks. After that, you rob Doc Mitchell for all his shit, then he provides some supplies and a little bit of info that gives you direction on what to do next. And after you step outside that door and get flashbanged by the Mojave sun, the entire world of New Vegas is at your disposal. There is a suggested path forward, but there is no clear restriction on what you do from that moment on. It's completely up to you. If you're a new player, you can stick pretty close to the game's suggested route, because that path actually does a good job at teaching you how New Vegas works. It walks you through important early towns and quest lines, slowly introduces you to bigger factions, and helps you level up and find gear at a pace that feels natural. Or you can ignore the intended route almost immediately and just head out in whatever direction you want. The game doesn't stop or force you back on track, and it doesn't punish you for playing your own way. It just adapts, and that right there is one of New Vegas's biggest strengths. The level of freedom and choice it gives you is honestly kind of insane. The only real thing holding you back most of the time is your character build, because skill checks can determine which approach you can or cannot take to a situation. Failing a speech check might close off negotiation, but a different skill like science, repair, or lockpick can still open another path forward. The situation doesn't end, it just changes based on what your character is capable of. And this even shows in the combat as well. Certain enemies around the map can be a touch harder if you don't have good weapons or your skills aren't up to par, but it's not anything you can't handle. There are very few enemies that stop you in your tracks and require you to maybe come back at a different time. And the reason all of this freedom matters is because New Vegas actually makes the outcomes of your choices very noticeable. The world reacts to what you do, and the biggest system behind that is the reputation system, which determines how factions and towns in the Mojave perceive your character. This reputation system has a very large impact on how the game functions at nearly every level. It directly affects how NPCs respond to the player, influencing dialogue tone, willingness to interact, and whether characters treat you with respect or outright hostility. Reputation also plays a major role in quest design, determining which quests become available, which ones are locked out, and how certain objectives can be completed based on faction trust. And beyond that, it shapes how the Mojave itself feels to navigate, as areas controlled by factions you're aligned with tend to feel safer, while hostile territories are obviously more dangerous. A great early game example of the reputation system is the Good Springs versus Powder Gangers conflict. Helping Good Springs kill the group of attacking Powder Gangers boosts your standing with the town to liked, but it tanks your reputation with the Powder Gangers to hated, which can possibly make future Powder Ganger encounters hostile on sight. And this happens very consistently throughout your playthrough, which is why the reputation system feels like it works so well. All of these factions and towns are written with real depth and different ideologies. Each faction operates as a competing solution to the Mojave's problems, defined by its own values, priorities, and methods. And aligning with one of these groups inevitably closes off other paths at a certain point in the game, which turns faction choice into a meaningful commitment rather than a cosmetic decision. There are 4 main factions that obviously have the biggest impact on the story and the world. Those factions being the NCR, Caesar's Legion, Mr. House, and Yes Man. And I'll break these factions down as quickly as I can for you right now. The NCR, or New California Republic, represents an attempt to rebuild pre-war society through democratic institutions, laws, and military-backed order. It values stability, civilian governance, and long-term growth, but is heavily weighed down by bureaucracy, corruption, and overexpansion. Supporting the NCR means choosing a familiar system that offers structure and security, but struggles to operate efficiently in the Mojave Desert. Caesar's Legion, or Caesar's Legion, is a group that rejects democracy in favor of absolute authority and strict hierarchy. It eliminates chaos through violence, fear, and total obedience, creating order at the cost of freedom and human rights. Backing the Legion means accepting stability through oppression and viewing cruelty as a necessary tool of governance. Mr. House, aka the person who controls the New Vegas Strip, believes progress requires intelligence, efficiency, and centralized planning under a single authority. His vision offers security and technological advancement, but strips people of political agency and personal freedom. Supporting the House means trusting one powerful figure to decide the future for everyone else. Finally, there's Yes Man, or the player independent path. This removes centralized control entirely, leaving the future of the Mojave Desert shaped by the player's choices. It offers maximum freedom, but little structure, making stability uncertain and heavily dependent on which factions are supported or destroyed. Choosing independence means embracing freedom with no guaranteed safety net. And those are just the main 4 factions and kind of a brief idea of what they represent. There's also a bunch of other factions and towns that you'll get to know and build a reputation with throughout your playthrough. But the beauty in all of this is that there's no correct choice on who to side with. As I said before, each faction offers a different solution to the same problems, and each come with serious trade-offs. New Vegas lets you decide which flaws you want to live with, and it's not as simple as just good or bad. And these elements of the game are amplified because New Vegas has incredible writing and quest design. The writing is compelling because it's very enjoyable to learn everything I can about the Fallout universe, which in my opinion is one of the best in gaming. Conversations, side quests, and even small environmental details often reveal information about the Mojave's history, power structures, and ongoing conflicts, which gradually adds to your understanding of how the region functions. Even seemingly minor stories like local disputes or small-scale survival problems frequently tie back to the broader faction struggles and political tensions. This layered approach makes the world feel more interconnected, as if every character and location exists within the same ongoing conflict rather than isolated in separate pieces of content. And what gives the writing its weight is how it emphasizes the worldview of the characters and the factions speaking. Dialogue isn't there to tell the player what's right or wrong, but to show how different people see the same situation based on their beliefs and priorities. An NCR official, a Legion member, or a local settler can all describe the same issue in completely different ways, and each one makes sense within that person's own logic and beliefs, and it's within the context that the player will decide what they want to do. As for the quest design, I think this game handles it masterfully, and my favorite part of that by far is the sheer variety of quests New Vegas throws at you even early on in the game. You have your more grounded quests, like finding a new sheriff for a town, mediating a hostage situation, or solving a murder and bringing that murderer to justice. But then New Vegas just as often throws absurd quests at you. The most notable quest very early on in the game, if you follow the suggested path, is the Repcon Facility quest, where you go to clear out some ghouls for a sniper man named Manny, but instead you discover a group of religious ghouls that need your help sending them to space, and one of them is also a racist scientist.
Stop wasting my time, Smoothskin. Go waste Jason's.
But if you decide to help them, you have to clear out some invisible nightkin, go fetch some parts to repair their ship, and finally send their rocket up into space. Or you can blow them up because, you know, freedom and choice. And there's countless interesting and weird quests to get into, and it keeps the game fresh compared to the games that just feel like they give you a bunch of fetch quests. Another thing I appreciate is how the game integrates players' skills and perks directly into its quest design. As I mentioned earlier, skills function less as a stat gate and more as tools that shape how quests can be approached. Skill checks rarely exist to stop progress. Instead, they open up different methods of solving the same problem. A high speech skill might allow a player to de-escalate a conflict or extract crucial information, while science, repair, or lockpick can reveal more technical solutions that bypass confrontation entirely, but failing a skill check only means that you just have to try something else. Most of the time, skills also influence what the player understands about a situation, not just what they can do. Certain dialogue options only appear if the player has the knowledge or expertise to recognize a lie, question a motive, or understand the long-term implications of a decision, which obviously contributes to the multiple ways that you can approach completing a quest, and that's very nice. Moving on to, of course, the most important aspect to every game ever, and that's the gameplay. Boy, I'll tell you, this game does feel 15 years old, mainly because technically speaking, the game is pretty much unplayable on modern PCs without a bunch of mods. The game constantly crashes with or without mods, and in general, many of the quality of life improvements found in modern RPGs are just straight up missing, which of course is expected, but that doesn't mean it's not a problem, which is why I ran the game with just a handful of mods to make it playable first and foremost, and to add some quality of life to my experience. But required modding aside though, the gameplay is not too bad. I do like many things about the gameplay, like how character build and stats matter in combat. The crazy weapon variety makes encounters feel more fun and interesting. VATS, of course, is awesome and adds a light turn-based element to the combat, and there is something nice about the combat's overall simplicity. But on the other hand, movement and gunplay feel a bit clunky, melee is especially rough, and the animations and feedback feel outdated. But these are issues that can be solved by mods, and since I did mention you kinda have to mod the game to play it anyway, you might as well add some combat enhancements and other quality of life features to make New Vegas as good as it can be. But that's up to you. I will say without texture packs and graphic mods, the game is very plain and boring to look at, and installing any sort of visual enhancement mods will be like water for your eyes. So I'd recommend at least doing that. And not really gameplay, so to speak, but the music in this game absolutely slaps. It always manages to fit the mood, whether you're roaming the desert, chilling in New Vegas, or blowing off heads with VATS. You can really wiggle your finger to all this music, so that's another big highlight of the gameplay. Gameplay with quotes around it, of course. Exploration in this game for me is also a big highlight because, again, variety is one of the game's biggest strengths. You never know what you'll really come across when strolling through the map. In the middle of one of my quests, I came across a Mirelurk, which resembles the monster from the Creature of the Black Lagoon. And when you see this monster in the game, you don't really question its place in the world. The same thing happens if you have the Wild Wasteland perk and you come across a group of literal aliens. These oddities also extend to the locations in the game as well, which makes it even better. Anything makes sense in the Fallout universe no matter how strange it is, and that's something I truly love about this game, as well as the other games in the franchise. One more part of the actual gameplay I'll quickly highlight are the companions. The companions are generally very useful and interesting characters. They can hold your shit for you when you're overweight, they help in combat, and they can affect your world interactions. For example, I chose Boone as my companion for this playthrough, who is a badass sniper man, but he hates Caesar's Legion. So when I went to visit the Legion base for a quest, he shot at them right away, and he straight up told me he's gonna kill these guys and asked if I was gonna join him in doing so.
Let's get one thing straight. I see any crimson, I'm taking a shot. You don't like that, you're on your own.
Needless to say, I ended all ties with the Legion right then and there.
You let other women make a fool of you. Why don't you do right? Like some other men do. Get out of here. Get me some money too.
Me and Boone ended up telling that old bitch what time it was. So yeah, the companions are pretty awesome, and they get a thumbs up from me. Overall though, the gameplay is a bit outdated, but honestly it feels fine to me. I am someone who enjoys older games though, so someone who needs the latest and greatest fluid and amazing gameplay without mods to enjoy their experience will absolutely suffer playing this game. I'd still recommend it, but you will have to download a lot of mods to make it feel even remotely modern. But clunky gameplay aside though, it's clear that Fallout New Vegas is still an incredible experience even in 2025. When you really break it down, Fallout New Vegas works because its entire design is built around making the player matter. From its character builds and skill checks to reputation and faction alignment, the game constantly reacts to how you play instead of funneling you towards a single outcome. That freedom is backed by a politically interesting Fallout setting, factions with clear ideologies, and writing that presents different perspectives without telling you which one is correct. Add in quest design that ranges from grounded local conflicts to unique Fallout absurdities, and you get a world that feels interconnected rather than padded out. And even in 2025, with clunky combat and some outdated mechanics that mods often help smooth over, New Vegas still stands above many modern open world RPGs because it prioritizes meaningful choice and consequence rather than aspects of a game that literally don't matter to a player. And it's for all of those reasons and many others why Fallout New Vegas is easily one of the best RPGs of all time. But that's it for me though. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.